next up, we got Vincenzo.
Yeah, that's me, Mark. How you doing? Thank
Good,
you.
how are you?
Good, good. Thank you for having me. So, pleasure to be here, guys. I appreciate the opportunity. So, let me just quickly start sharing my screen so we can go into today's topic from my side. So, for everybody just joining for my presentation, I'm gonna be quickly going over some of the strategies. I would say more than strategy mistakes I keep seeing people doing when it comes to PPC that is wasting a lot of money for a lot of people. Like it's burning their money essentially. And I just wanted to highlight a few of them, a few of the concepts, and hopefully that's gonna make the whole ecosystem that we experience right now in Amazon in 2025 much easier to navigate. So let me just start with a quick introduction about myself. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, founder and CEO of Ecomcy. We've been in the space for over 7 years now. We specialize in doing full brand management across Amazon and Walmart brands with a team of over 70 people. We have a portfolio over 9 figures in revenue managed. So we have a lot of expertise when it comes to managing brands from A to Z. And that's how we have, identified a lot of the things that we're going to be sharing today that consistently are effectively are holding the brands from growing forward, specifically on today's topic, which is PPC. And beyond that, if anybody's interested, I also have a podcast called the Commerce Lab, where we're having some of great experts, some of them in today's call. So if you're keen to check it out, feel free to have a look. Yeah, we can dive into this topic right away, which is effectively how we can maximize our performance when it comes to PPC. So I guess the first thing I want to go into when it comes to PPC is a lot of the myths I see when people, start managing their advertising campaigns, okay? And some of the things I see constantly, and this is on a daily basis, and you will think this is not happening, but still happening in 2025, is how people just blindly just follow recommendations from Amazon when it comes to campaigns. This only doesn't come from a bid perspective, which a lot of people just follow blindly what the bids have to do at the keyword level. It also has to do with the campaign structure and campaigns you have to go for. As we know, Amazon now has implemented a lot of recommendation on the PPC dashboard, and a lot of that, unfortunately, doesn't usually has the best interest in mind when it comes to be cost effective. So I would say that's something that I would recommend for everybody doing PPC to avoid at all costs. Like educate yourself or work with experts when it comes to that, because another mistake that derives from that is effectively how people are not really going in depth when it comes to the data of their PPC campaigns, right? So I would say starting with the bids side of things, this is where I would say it's one of the main number one mistakes that's breaking everybody pockets when it comes to PPC, because bids at the end of the day a lot of times, and this I'm sure for all people in the call experts that do PPC, when you guys do audits, you have seen that people just use arbitrary bids. They usually just go with the suggested, or they just follow effectively what they think is a good number to go when it comes to bids. But realistically, there's a mathematical kind of science behind the bid to actually make sure if the bid makes sense for you or not in the first place. There's actually something that everybody should be doing before running any kind of PPC in the first place. That you need to know what is the margin behind your product, and understanding if in the first place your actual product can make money. Because if you actually have a look at what is going to be your price one, you have a look at what is going to be potentially your target ACOS based on your margin, and then you have a look at the conversion rate, which conversion rate is another important thing people don't take in consideration. You have to consider that for certain categories, conversion rate could be 5% compared to others that could be 20%. So you need to understand what is the baseline across all your niche. Because if you're just assuming that it's a flat kind of percentage because you just think that the average conversion everybody on Amazon is 15%, you can end up having a very rough journey when it comes to PPC, because then mathematically, even if you had the perfect product, the perfect offer, the math is just not there based on the current CPC of the market to make you profitable. So as you can see, it's a simple calculation, understanding your target ACOS, per price, a conversion rate. That's going to give you starting bits when it comes to your PPC. Now, I know this sounds basic, but you'll be surprised how many times, countless time on a daily basis when you check accounts, people is not doing this. So this is a must. You need to understand which bits you had to go for. Like a very clear example here is like understanding, what's the difference between your break-even ACOS compared to your target kind of TACOS. A lot of times, people only stay on the surface of ACOS. In fact, a lot of times when we have conversation with on clients, the whole conversation about ACOS, ACOS, ACOS. But actually, you need to understand what is the bigger picture beyond ACOS? Like you need to understand what is the influence of other fees, like your cost of goods, Amazon fees, total organic sales, and that's why tacos is a good indicator. But of course, if you don't know what is the indicator in the first place, going back to the formula I just showed you, you're gonna end up with bids that, regardless of how amazing your sponsor product, sponsor brand, sponsor display campaigns are set up, you effectively are never gonna be profitable in the first place. And that brings me to my top 5 kind of mistakes that I feel if you don't take care of right now, they're not going to boost your profitability. So the first one is the top performing kind of focus. Like on the other side, like a lot of the mistakes I see is people have usually a big catalog. They might have 5 to 10 SKUs, and they don't apply the 80-20 rule. They might have a lot of kind of SKUs into their portfolio, and then they'll actually focus, okay, which portfolio is the one that actually makes me the most profitable? And from there, how do I make the decision of which one I have to prioritize? Because if you have a limited budget and you just do what most people do, which is just spread the budget across the whole account, most likely you're not going to prioritize the one that's giving you the best return on investment. So make sure you understand that. The negation of keywords is another big thing. Like I know a lot of people try to optimize based on bids, and that's still a good strategy, but you need to make sure the negation is in place once you start getting enough data, because if not, you consistently can start showing for specific variation of a keyword that has to do with a variation that you don't sell, specific size, specific kind of denomination that has nothing to do with your product, and you're just burning money. Separation of campaign, huge thing. I keep seeing 2025 people combining Excel with phrase and broad. That's like a killer for me every single time I see that. You need to make sure segmentation is in place, not only at the keyword targeting type, but also the product level. Bidding, big thing. Like if you actually don't have proven data on specific keyword, you should never be doing up and down. You should always focus on either on fixed bids or down only. And the final one is placement optimization, which now I will add an extra bracket is audiences. A lot of time people are not focusing on top of the search, rest of the search, pro details pages. Put a lot of focus on that. You're gonna be surprised how many times you have better conversion certain placements that you're not leveraging. Now, when I would say, just to go a little bit more deep and make it more graphic to start coming to a conclusion, like this is the level of granularity I want to achieve, like based on product, based on keywords, based on goals. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have granularity, at the end of the day, you can optimize. You don't know what is performing, what is bleeding, what you need to put off, why you need to put more budget. So make sure that a segmentation is in place, otherwise profitability is going to be a very tough thing for you to achieve. And here's a very quick example of how you can start focusing on optimizing your campaigns in terms of actionables, right? So some of the things, this goes to the 80-20 rule, right? So we found that in this specific case, the client was investing a lot of time into putting budget across 50% of the catalog that was underperforming in terms of ACOS and monthly sales. And it was a simple change. It was just distributing that budget towards the top performing ASIN that was being consistent, providing results to that account. Just by doing that, we had a huge growth, 20% of ACOS, and increase in sales of over 250K. So what I'm trying to say is just small things like that, like redistributing what makes you money or what doesn't make you money, and make sure you have the segmentation in place, can make a huge difference on your PPC. And another thing here is another thing I wanted to go a bit more in depth in terms of other mistakes, like auto campaigns are not a huge thing. Or they, funny enough, I had a client, they were making over $5 million per year on Amazon. We did the audit, and they only had like 10 auto campaigns. That's the only thing they run their PPC on. And when I see things like that, it's like, that's crazy. Like when you have that amount of data, you should be going into manual campaigns. So make sure auto campaigns just a mean towards an end. You identify the keywords that work, the keywords that don't work, negate, escalate to manual. The same with broad campaigns, and make sure that the structure is solid. If it's poor, the more money you spend, the more inefficient it's gonna get. And I guess to conclude is another thing that also put a lot of emphasis when it comes to this is, of course, I focus a lot on the mistakes and fundamentals that should be missing when it comes to PPC, but everything has to be data driven. Like at the end of the day, I know a lot of people might have certain intuitions around specific markets, around specific niche, but if you don't have the data to prove a keyword, to prove a bid, to prove a specific segmentation, there's no point on kind of letting the market decide for you. Like you need to have some fundamentals on which the PPC is going to build amount in terms of the focus you're going to go long term, if the pro is going to work, if it's not going to work, and so on. So that's everything from my side. Of course, if you want to have a deeper conversation about, how we can help you with PPC and make you more profitable, feel free to scan the QR code on the screen. We're more than happy with my team to add value as much as possible. And that's everything from me. And thank you so much for having me. Pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you very much.